B'Shem Hashem Na'aseh v'Natzliach, Shiur Torah, Bruchim Abayim. We are back here from Jerusalem, live, and here to give you guys an update, as we promised you guys throughout this difficult time. We're going to do a Shiur B'ezrat Hashem almost every single day to try to give you guys some more Torah insights on what is a Jew to do, what is a person that believes in the Torah to do at these times where there is a war. And tonight's shiur is going to be for the refuah shlema for Rabbanit Sarah bat Anat, Rav Ephraim ben Shulamit, Rabbanit Levana bat Sarah, Avi Mori David ben Esriya, Imi Morati Doris bat Jora, and all of Am Yisrael, and all the righteous Noahites that continue to support and help us in all the wonderful things that our organization is doing. Anyone that wants to donate to the current campaign that we have to help the Israeli soldiers and other poor people here in Israel, you can go to bhchesed.org, bhchesed.org. You could donate as much as your heart and your bank account allows. So, with that being said, we're going to get right into it. We have, Baruch Hashem, a lot of threats, a lot of things going on. And since I don't watch the news, different people send me different things. That's how I get many of my updates, and unless I have to investigate something further, usually this suffices. In the last couple of weeks, for obvious reasons, the amount of messages that I'm getting from people regarding the news, regarding what's going on in the world, has surpassed any other time. But of course, much of it is necessary for us to understand what you guys are going through, what everyone's going through. Of course, there's a war. We hear the missiles, we hear what's going on out there, and I understand that the situation is not lo pashut, as they say. It's not simple, because the amount of anxiety that everyone has had since this whole terror attack in Israel just a couple of weeks ago has surpassed any other time since the Yom Kippur War. But the reality is, this generation is very, very different than the past generations, and therefore people are dealing with it differently. Furthermore, there's a lot of surprises for people that thought that there's going to be a lot more public support, either from America or from different countries, or even from fellow Jews, are disappointed when they see how much hatred is actually being spread out there right now against the Jews, even though they're the ones that are the victims here. They're the ones that were attacked, because everyone is harping on the fact of the counterattack. And we're going to get to all of that. But of course, we always have to understand that we're not here to report the news to you. We're here to give you a Torah perspective that about the news, about what's going on out there, so everyone has a clear understanding of what to do. And tonight we're going to try to address the big question that everyone has in their mind, which is what to consider or what to do if the situation, if this war gets much worse. Now, why would this war get much worse? For anyone that hasn't kept up with the news, you have a few things to consider. Number one, you have the Russians obviously are not very happy with Israel, especially since Israel, for whatever reason or another, made the mistake of supporting their haters, Ukraine, in the war between Russia and Ukraine. They should have simply kept their mouth shut, but they chose a side, and literally, like HaKadosh Baruch Hu opened the mouth of a donkey, and Vayiftach Hashem et pi ha'aton, says the Torah. He opened the mouth of a donkey, and they supported our enemy, which is also Russia's enemy, and obviously that automatically made Russia default to supporting the Ishmael. Furthermore, today it was announced that China is trying to show its strength by sending a ship to the area, because they didn't like the fact that America, the United States, sent their ship over here, and that certainly looks like things are heating up. They've hated each other for a long time, but as I've spoken about and even wrote articles about maybe 20 years ago, that the relationship between China and America is like a unhappy marriage that simply cannot end because of certain things. But it looks like the two are at the very least picking up a notch in their hatred for each other. They're putting their businesses aside for a moment and trying to see who has bigger muscles. And of course, all of the typical enemies that Israel has had for all of these years, whether it's the Hezbollah that's from Jordan, or Iran that's been trying to destroy Israel for many years, and had they had the atomic bomb, they would have already pressed the button 10 times. Or it's Turkey, even though Turkey has a Jewish community there. Some Jews that we know are there still now, and it's certainly best for them to leave under the conditions that they're in, as the situation is dire. Turkey is looking for a war with Israel, and if you live in Turkey, you don't want to end up like the Jews that live in Iran, that can't say a single thing to support anything outside of Iran. Literally, there are Jews living in Iran that are known to the public. They're known to the government. They have a very careful eye on them, and if they have a single peep in support of Israel, pretty much that would be the end of the Keilah. So they don't support Israel. But needless to say, whether you support or you don't support Israel, it's not a good situation to be in, and it looks like Turkey may be turning out to be like that. And of course, you have the Palestinians, the ones that are inside Israel, the ones that are outside of Israel, and many, many others. Yemen, obviously, there's a lot of stuff going on. But again, what a lot of people are not necessarily considering as far as a problem is the allies, meaning the so-called allies of Israel, such as England or the U.S. No one is really, is really considering the situation that's happening there, which is the fact that there are endless amount of protests against Israel in the very same allies they have, which is, the U.S., England, Canada. So there's a lot going on. There's hatred coming from all places, all types of things going on, and certainly this is something to be concerned about, because if this war increases, could very well be the next world war, the war of Gog and Magog. If this situation calms down, it simply means that this is being delayed for another time. Now, last week, or I think maybe a week and a half ago, and we also discussed it last week, we mentioned a few things that rubbed a few people the wrong way. Most of them, that paid attention to the whole lecture, understood the reasons behind it. Some of them, didn't listen to the whole lecture and simply just jumped to conclusions. But my favorite is when the Ishmaelim took an excerpt out of my lecture and did the job for us by publicizing it literally millions of times, just like they have with some of my other lectures in the past, when I spoke against the cash advance business and how it's forbidden to do it, and they took that clip and thought that I was somehow supporting their hatred, while in reality it was just simply rebuking our own people to let them know that they have to be honest in business. But they published that clip millions of times. This one even surpassed the last one. Why? Because they're saying, wait, look, this rabbi is saying that he's advocating for the murder of women and children that are Muslims. Now, obviously, anyone that understood it that way must come from Ishmael, because even their prophet, their fake prophet, was illiterate. So I wouldn't expect them to be literate. But anyone that actually understood what was actually being said there would understand that this is a war. In a war, there are certain conditions that need to be taken, certain things that need to be taken into consideration. So all of that, B'ezrat Hashem, will be discussed, what to do, how to do. Some people are even asking me, what happens if, hostages, capture us? Can we kill ourselves? Is it allowed according to the Torah? All of these types of things that people ask out of, that really comes out of more anxiety than a yearning for knowledge. Now, The first thing that a person has to look at is always the weekly parasha. The weekly parasha tells you a lot of different things. It's a foundation for every single thing that you could possibly have, and this week's parasha is as great as it can possibly be. It's officially the first Jew, Avraham Avinu. Avraham Avinu in Parashat Lech Lecha, HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Avraham Avinu, Lech Lecha me'artzecha, me'moladetecha, me'bet avicha. Go for yourself, from your land, from your relatives. In so many words, HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Avraham Avinu, our forefather, to go. Where? He doesn't tell him where. He doesn't tell him where. And in so many words, this is the ultimate test for Avraham Avinu, because it's not just go somewhere and you have certain things waiting for you. No, he's telling him go and leave everything that you know. Leave your father. Leave your everything that you have. Just go. Now, this is one of the 10 big tests that Avraham Avinu got, where HaKadosh Baruch Hu is in essence checking on the canister, knocking on the canister to see how strong it is. And that's what the Midrash says. The Midrash says that why does HaKadosh Baruch Hu test the righteous people? Obviously, if he knows the future, then he knows that Avraham is going to pass this test. He knows that Moshe Rabbeinu is going to pass the test. He knows that David HaMelech is going to pass the test. He knows that all of these righteous people that he tested are going to pass the test. So what's the point of passing the test? Say the Chachamim, the holy Jewish sages, explain to us that the test is not for them. Meaning, Hashem is not testing Avraham for Avraham's sake. Hashem is testing Avraham for our sake. Because when a person has good product, let's say for example he has good clay pots, before he sells it to the customer, to the potential customer, and shows him different ones, you say, listen, I have this one, and he shows it to him, knocks on it a little bit, then he has another one, and he knocks on it a little harder, then he says, this is the best one, and he knocks on it really hard, and maybe even drops it on the floor. Now why would you drop the best one on the floor? To show the customer how strong it is, and it doesn't break. And that's in essence what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is doing with all of the tzaddikim. He tests them really, really hard, not for their sake, but for everyone out there today, nearly 4,000 years later, to see how strong this pot is, how strong these righteous people are, and therefore why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu choose them to be our forefathers, to be our leaders, to be our prophets, and not you, and not somebody else, and not someone illiterate, or somebody that pretended to be a prophet and in reality he wasn't. No, he tested them because he wanted to show you no one else can do what they do. So this test, in essence, is something that's unique for the righteous people, and in fact, it's something that doesn't happen to wicked people. It doesn't happen to wicked people. Hashem does not test Bil'am. Hashem does not test any of the wicked people that are mentioned in the Torah, like Balak, or Og, or Amalek. He doesn't test any of them. Why? Because they already failed the test on their own. So what is this relevant to you? Very, very simple. If you're being tested in life, if you're having struggles, even though you're serving Hashem, you're still being tested. You're serving Hashem. You're praying every single day. You're giving the best of what you have for the sake of publicizing Torah. You're eating kosher. You're praying. You're studying Torah. But yet you're having problems in your marriage. You're having problems finding a wife. You're having problems finding a husband. You're having problems with money. You're having problems with health problems. You're having all of these different issues. Even though you are serving Hashem, that's a good sign. Why is it a good sign that you're being tested? As Shlomo HaMelech tells us, HaKadosh Baruch Hu tests those that He loves. If He loves you, He tests you. Why? Because He wants to show everyone around you why He loves you so much, because you're passing all of those tests. Because ultimately, everyone is going to have to see the reward that you get, that beautiful family that you build as a result of your righteousness, the extraordinary amount of Torah that you end up knowing, much more than everybody else that saw you grow. All of the other blessings that you have, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to test you in order for everyone else to see that you're the strong pot, and therefore you got that test. If you're not getting any tests, you should be worried. Now, in fact, you're saying, wait, I'm getting tests, but I'm not exactly righteous. Those are not tests. Those are rebukes. Meaning, if you're not observing Shabbat, if you're not being honest in your business, if you're an adulterer, if you're a immoral person, and you're having all types of problems, you can't sleep at night, you have nightmares, you're losing money, your wife wants to divorce you, your husband hates you, your kids can't even say your name, or can't call you Ima or Abba, they call you by your first name, all types of disrespect, then that's not because you're being tested, it's because you're being rebuked, where Hashem is showing you that since you're not going in the way of Torah, therefore these things are happening, and therefore it's good for you to change. Now, ultimately, one of the things that we see in Parashat Lech Lecha is that this test is not a one-time test, not for Avraham and not for any of the righteous people. In fact, one of the things that we see is that the righteous people must be ready to endure isolation, because popularity is pleasant and it's something that people look for, but in reality it causes a lot of problems. If a person wants to be righteous, they have to be prepared to be isolated, because the righteous path is not necessarily the popular path. And if a person is prepared to be isolated and go on the righteous path, then they're going to know that it's not just that you're going alone. You're going with Hashem, and you're not desiring to win the approval of everyone else, but rather that you're looking to win the approval of Hashem, without bending your principles to other people, without changing the Torah in order to pacify people. You're going to do whatever you can to stick to the law of Hashem. And Avraham and Sarah were being given a challenge right now to isolate themselves from everything that they know, not only moving on the other side of the river, but moving on the other side of everyone else that they know, in order to not only acknowledge, but make sure everybody else acknowledges that the path that they're going is the path of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This, Rabotai Karim, is a test that each and every single person is given in their life, where at some point or another, you're going to be tested by Hashem, and many times more than once, where you're going to have a moment of truth, and you're going to have to pick a side. You're going to have to pick a side of whose side you're on. Are you on the side of your friends? Are you on the side of your friends and family? Are you on the side of getting likes on YouTube and popularity on TikTok and Twitter? Are you on the side of a Kadosh Baruch Hu that sometimes is the exact opposite of all of those things? Each person is going to be given a test, and unlike what people think, a Kadosh Baruch Hu does not reward right away. We see here that Avraham is being given a test to isolate himself from everything that he knows, and only 24 years later does Hashem show him any type of reward for this. Only 24 years after he left everything does Hashem actually send him any type of reward, where he's finally getting the angels tell him, you're going to have a son, good things are going to happen to you. But that's only 24 years. That means that Avraham has to not just leave town. He doesn't have to just say goodbye. He's going, he has no idea where he's going. Once he gets there, things don't necessarily pan out to be so good, because he has to leave, he has to go to Egypt because there's famine. He has to go and save his wife because she's kidnapped by Hamas of that day, which is the Paro. She's kidnapped by them. Hashem protects her. No one touches her. But he has to now go there, leave. There's a whole problem over here. People think that he's crazy for what he's doing. But Avraham sticks to the path of Hashem, even though common sense, it doesn't make. Even though popularity, it doesn't have. Financial success, no chance. What does he have? He has the acknowledgement, this is what Hashem said, this is what I'm doing. Yeah, but if I'm doing what Hashem said, shouldn't I get some money? Shouldn't I get some peace of mind? Shouldn't I get some comfort? Shouldn't I get, whatever a person desires? No. Only 24 years later does Avraham Avinu get shown any type of real reward in this world from this first test, or this particular test. It really wasn't the first test. Right now, Rabotai, we have a huge test. Am Yisrael has a huge test, and it's not the test of these terrorists, but rather the bigger test is choosing a side. Each and every single one of us is going to have to choose a side because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is making everything clear, where He is unfolding the illusion that people have been following. They've been following Hollywood and certain superstars. They've been following sports and certain superstars. They've been following governments and certain, people, politicians. They've been following all types of things. But now, they're quickly finding out that these people and these things that they followed and supported and contributed to don't necessarily think like them. Don't necessarily want them to live even. Where in fact, even after the world found out about the massacre that took place here in Eretz Yisrael, where they massacred, I would estimate, no less than 2,000 people. The numbers keep going higher. It may very well be much more than that. They've only confirmed, I think, somewhere in the neighborhood between 1,600 and 1,800 Jews have been massacred here. Thousands have been injured. A few hundred have been taken as hostages. But the gruesome massacre cannot be understated. We've spoken about the details of it last week for anyone that wants to know, but the point being is that one of the things that was discovered in the last few days, or at least reported in the last few days, is that these Ishmaelim weren't the typical psychopaths that the world is used to, even the Israelis were used to, where they were found bags and bags of drugs that they took, that apparently these drugs are very common in Gaza and among these evil people, and they took these drugs before they actually went on the attack, before they started killing people, because these drugs not only give them the ability to endure a lot more pain and not have any need for sleep, but it also removes any type of instinct from them, any type of conscience from them, as if they have any. And in so many words, it increases the killer instinct. And there were literally bags and bags of these pills found in their, the terrorist trucks and all these places. Now, anyone that has a little bit of conscience, maybe some common sense, sees that when somebody's taking drugs in order to make themselves a bigger killer, and then you see the result of it from all the victims, you realize quickly it doesn't even matter who the victim is. You already know that these people are evil. You already know that these people are psychopaths. And when you see that this is the education that they're giving to their children, this is something that literally there's no limitation of age. They teach little kids, they have videos of little kids shooting weapons and training to be just like them and dreaming to be just like them. There's videos that they themselves make. You see that there's something wrong here. But yet, what's worse is that there are many people around the world supporting it. The Klosenberger Rebbe, Alav Shalom, in a shiur that he made in 1975, 50 years ago or so, he said in this shiur, and this was documented and recently reported, he said He is the one that I've spoken to you guys about in the past, one of the great tzaddikim that lived in the last 100 years, saw his entire family massacred by the Nazis, by Hitler, his wife, his 10 kids. But despite all of that, he survived it and thrived as a result and built the Tzanz Chassidut, one of the best Chassiduts today. They have a huge community, Baruch Hashem, here in Israel, in Netanya, and in other places around the world. And Baruch Hashem, they're not just size as far as numbers, but they have, Baruch Hashem, an extraordinary amount of dedication to the Torah, where you see the way that they're teaching their kids how much Torah they know. Little kids know 200, 300, 400 pages of Gemara by heart. By heart. Average student, even teenager, and most yeshivot may not even know 1 page of Gemara by heart. They have literally little kids knowing 200, 300 pages of Gemara by heart. It's unbelievable. This is the Klosenberger Rebbe's baby. That's how he taught. That's the byproduct of his holiness. And 50 years ago, he said in a shiur that the Ishmaelim are much bigger, according to our Masoret. The Ishmaelim are much bigger Reshaim than Hitler himself. Because they're according to our tradition, from the Zohar Kadosh, in Parashat Shmot, the Ishmaelim come from the Klippa of the Chamor, who has greater level of impurity, greater level of Tum'ah, than the Klippa of the Kelev. And one of the things that we saw this actually in come to life is actually during the Holocaust, says the Klosenberger Rebbe, where the Mufti, Imach Shimo V'Zichro, he's the one that went to visit Hitler in 1941 and gave him the idea to destroy the Jews with the gas chambers. And the Klosenberger Rebbe says that after the war ended, they put the Jews in different DP camps. And he says that he himself saw with his own eyes in the DP camp that he was in Feldefing, the Arab names and letters inside the closets, in the barracks, because that's where many Arabs lived during the war, because they were training the Nazis of how to kill Jewish people. And he says that you have to understand that the hatred of the Ishmaelim to the Jews is very different than the hatred of others. Because the hatred of the Ishmaelim towards the Jews is specifically because of the Torah. And therefore, they schedule all of their massacres, their murders, their attacks on the Jewish people, dafka on Yamim Tovim, on Shabbat, on Rosh Hashanah, on Yom Kippur, on Simchat Torah, on Purim. That's when their attacks are. Because their Tum'ah cannot tolerate the Kedusha of Am Yisrael. And all of this began with what I mentioned to you guys a week and a half ago, with the evil, conniving serpent who was jealous of Adam HaRishon. And therefore, says the Klosenberger Rebbe, the closer we get to Mashiach, the greater the hatred from the Sitra Achra that's Ishmael. In so many words, Rabotai Yekerim, anyone that's a Talmid Chacham, anyone that cleaves to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, anyone that makes the Torah the priority number 1, 2, and 3 in his life, is not surprised by what's happening. In fact, anyone that's glued to HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows that it's not going to get any better. Now, it may calm down for a while, Be'ezrat Hashem, give us an opportunity to help more people do tshuva, Be'ezrat Hashem. But ultimately, according to our prophets, according to our holy Torah, things will only get worse. It's just really a matter of how much more time Hashem is going to give us between now and the getting worse part. Now, one of the things that we're seeing here is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu took all of the ideologies that are antithetical to the Torah and threw them on their face in the last couple of weeks. Those that had the atheistic, communist, Zionist ideology, where all of their trust was in the land, all of their trust was in the army, all of their trust was in the Israeli government. Garbage. Why? All of it failed. On that day, no army. On that day, no Zionism. On that day, you needed God. On that day, even the biggest atheist was saying Shema Yisrael. I saw with my own eyes videos of people that claim themselves they don't believe in anything. Go desecrate the Torah, dancing around Avodah Zarah. Start saying Shema Yisrael, Shema Yisrael. As I've told you guys many times in the hospice, everybody's religious. And the reality is, Rabotai Karim, is that the Zionistic mentality that has fought against the Torah, has tried to remove the Torah from the Jewish people, no less than the Nazis tried to remove the Jewish people from this world, similar to how the Ishmaelim are trying to do, failed. Why? Because everyone realizes you need God. Now this only affects some people. In the West, in America, in different parts of Europe, where you have Jewish communities, whether it's France, England, or you have in Canada, North America, it's a different issue. Even though there are certainly many Zionists there and Zionist supporters there, the bigger problem is not that. The bigger problem is the materialistic lifestyle that people live, where the dollar is God. Somehow they confuse where they see on the dollar bill it says, "In God we trust," and they somehow have turned the dollar into God. In this materialistic lifestyle of watching movies, knowing everything about celebrities, spending all of their time trying to acquire more and more stuff, competing with the Joneses. All of this stuff is being put to question right now. Why is it being put to question? Because people are realizing that many of the people that they support and they give money to actually hate them. Someone sent me an article that came out, I believe today or last couple of days, where a bunch of Jews that attended a huge event by a famous comedian named Dave Chappelle reported that they had to walk out of this event with 20,000 people or more after this Dave Chappelle character started ranting about his condemning of Israel, his support of Hamas, of the Palestinians, which again, even if he only said Palestinians, it still means he supports Hamas because he's condemning Israel right now. Based on what? Based on the fact that he concludes that since Israel is responding by shutting the water and the electric in Gaza, that they're providing, and no one's paying for, the Israeli taxpayers are paying for it. Since they shut it down, since they're in the middle of a war, that's evil. That's not proportionate. And he is condemning it, and he's supporting the Muslims, he's supporting the Ishmaelim, he's supporting the Hamas, supporting terrorism. And he continued going on, and unlike what people would think, when you see terrorists murder thousands of people in gruesome, awful ways the world has never seen before, murder children, murder innocent women, murder civilians. Instead of the crowd saying, hey, Dave, shut up. What are you supporting terrorists for? These Jews that were there, that were spending their time and money and life in the show, quickly found out that nearly all 20,000 people attending the show agreed with Dave Chappelle and started cheering for Hamas, for the terrorist group, started cheering for the Palestinians that are, in more or less, almost all of them, are supporters of Hamas, either directly or indirectly. You're either supporting it by aspiring to be like them, by giving them all types of financial support, all types of other support, or you're supporting them by simply being silent while they're shooting their missiles off of your roof. Support doesn't have to be like what people think, oh, if he's not a terrorist directly, then that means he's okay. No, no, no. If you're not against terror, you are a supporter of terror. There is no such thing as neutral. Some people think, oh, no, I'm neutral. There's no such thing as neutral. There is no neutral. You're either against it or you're for it. Now, here you have Jews that have built their life, their ideology, their family, their whole makeup, instead of living Torah, instead of going to a shiur Torah, to identify themselves closer to their Jewish heritage, to their God that created them, to the God that gave them money to do. What do? They go and celebrate with a bunch of people and find out that they are in a crowd surrounded by 20,000 people, that if it was announced at that moment that you're allowed to do what was done by Hamas in Israel, you're allowed to do it for 5 minutes. In America, not a single Jew would have left that building alive. If it was legal for 1 minute, they announced, like they did in other places throughout history where they simply wanted to justify murder. So they allowed murder in Germany. They allowed murder in England. They allowed murder in Spain. They allowed murder in all of the places. Before they officially massacred us in large numbers, they massacred in small numbers, these pogroms and so on. They allowed murder. If they simply allowed murder for 1 minute, for 60 seconds, and it was announced on the speaker, hey, Dave Chappelle, shut up for a second, we have an important announcement to make. For the next 60 seconds, you can do whatever you want. Not a single Jew would have survived that comedy event. And guess what? That Jew that attended that comedy event didn't realize it until it was too late. Until it was too late, they realized that they were surrounded by people that are aspiring to kill them. People are surprised by this. Unless they're people of Torah. Because we've seen this before. In fact, there are many more Dave Chappelles out there. Some of them are even Jews. You have people like Jerry Seinfeld and other Reformed Jews in Hollywood and in other places, so-called celebrities, that are actually condemning Israel. Instead of supporting Israel at the time when they're being attacked, supporting Israel at the time that they are under attack, they're in war, they're condemning them. Why? Because from their long-distant relationship that they have, they say, wait a minute, you were attacked, okay, that's not good, but wait, you're shutting off water and electricity to these people? Why? They didn't do anything. What do you mean? You think that we just want to terrorize people for no reason? We just shut water just because, what, we're saving water? First and foremost, you should understand. If you don't live here, if you're not close to the matter, like you are close to your own hand, you're not going to understand. Why? You're on your comfortable couch. You're in front of your 60-inch TV screen. You're getting your news from the media that's full of propaganda. It all depends on which side they're on, and therefore that's what they report you. You're in a place where, in reality, in many cases, you may have never actually met a real Jew before in your life. Like this one black kid that so-called internet celebrity, TikTok celebrity, I don't know his name, but he was supporting the Palestine, he called it. But he talked to his friend, this Jewish kid, on this video, 30-second video, and he asked him, why are they saying free Israel? Isn't it free Palestine? And his Jewish friend, who he didn't know at this point that he was even Jewish, says, no, man, it's free Israel. Why Palestine? I'm from Israel, he says. He goes, nah, come on, you're not from Israel. He goes, no, I'm Jewish. So he said, so? So what does that mean? What does that have to do with Israel? He goes, Israel is the Jews. He goes, no, really? The moron didn't even know that Israel is the place for the Jews, but yet he went against it. He supported the enemies of Israel without actually even knowing who Israel is. And unfortunately, this is the majority of people who don't know anything about anything, but they support based on what they read in the news, what they see in the papers, what they see some big head reporter determine is the truth. And the best part about it is that they all tried to give us ethics class when they themselves don't follow their own ethics. Whether it's the people from the US, oh, you should have a responsible, proportionate response. Proportionate response? You mean like Hiroshima and Nagasaki? That was a proportionate response to Pearl Harbor? Or maybe the Persian Gulf War. That was proportionate. Or maybe Vietnam. Vietnam, very, very proportionate. Even the American people liked it. What proportion? What are you talking about? Or maybe the English are going to tell you that. With all the colonization that they did over the centuries. What proportion? What are you people talking about? Proportionate. So why are you shutting the water? Very simple. When you have a place, a few hundred miles big, that is comprised of terrorists and terrorist supporters, that just attacked you, that want you to die, that after they killed you, the civilians that were not involved in the war didn't shoot any guns, at least not that day, didn't throw any bombs, at least not that day. The mothers, the kids, the fathers, the teenagers, the adults, all running in the streets, celebrating this like as if it was a holiday for them. Celebrating, giving people cakes and all types of drinks and burning the Israeli flag and putting an Israeli flag on the floor and for everybody to walk on. The civilians that weren't part of the war. Those are very same called civilians that everybody's concerned about. Why aren't they getting water? Why are they getting the electricity from the Israelis they hate? Well, guess what? They still hate us. And they actually express that hatred more than ever. Because the biggest and most atrocious part of the attack was how everybody responded. Supporting the attack, celebrating the attack, mocking us after the attack. And you want us to give them water? You want us to give water to the enemy so they can continue satiating themselves and rearm themselves and attack us again? You want us to give the enemy electricity so they have an easier time shooting missiles at us? Do you know that they've shot nearly 10,000 missiles at us in the last 2 weeks? And yet you want us to go what? Feed them? Maybe we should buy everybody a McDonald's. We'll make sure it's halal. As if they actually even keep that. Maybe we should, you know what? Maybe we should take them on vacation. We'll take them to an island. Perhaps maybe we'll leave them there. Maybe, you know what? To make it a proportionate attack, What we're going to do is we're going to get everybody school tuition so they can become literate. Perhaps maybe one day read the books they say they believe in and realize it's all complete nonsense. Then we're going to send them all off to all of these supporting, places. Everywhere that had a protest, supporting, we'll send them to you. Why do I say send them to you in America or in England or in France or in Canada? Why there? You know why? Because even the other Arab countries won't accept them. Everyone is upset in Israel that is shutting off the electricity and the water. Why aren't you upset in Egypt that closed the border? Why aren't you upset at all of the other more than 24 Arab countries that refuse to accept the Palestinians? And in fact, some of them call them, enemies of them. Why aren't their own people, so-called own people, accepting them? Because everyone that knows who we're dealing with knows that this is the filth of the world that we're dealing with people that literally breed terrorists. It's not people that live a civilized life, but they have some bad people. No. This is people that their whole makeup is to kill Jewish people. And in fact, even kill Arab people. And in fact, even kill their own people that reject this psychopathic behavior. But where are they getting their support? From a bunch of people that don't live here. People that live in England, that know how to make videos on the internet, but don't actually know anything else. People that live in America, that never even met a Jew. Needless to say, never met a Palestinian that actually lived here. People that have no concept of what you actually have to deal with. And the best part about all of this is that many of the Palestinians that actually live in Israel are even more harsh on the supporters of Hamas and of Gaza than what I'm doing. There's a guy named, I think his name is Yosef Hedaya. He's an Arab Palestinian who lives in Israel. He's very active online. And Yosef Hedaya, he has made countless videos over the last few years trying to explain to the public that the narrative that the world is listening to from the terrorist side is simply a lie. He lives in Israel in peace and knows that there's no place on earth that's better for him. He says himself, I can even become president. He says I can do whatever I want, I have more freedom here, I have the ability to make money here, I have the ability to live here. And many of his own people that actually hated him and went against him realized that he's right over these last couple of weeks, because they realized that after they saw the massacre, they realized that if they actually lived under the so-called Palestinian rule in Israel, they would turn not into citizens of Palestine, but rather into victims, like the people of Gaza have become. They're not victims of Israel. They're victims of themselves, of the ideology that they have. Now, the support that people are giving is coming also from Jewish people. Support of Palestinians, support of the terrorism is also coming from Jewish people. Now, as I said, some of them are the Hollywood so-called people, the Jerry Seinfelds of the world, and other ignorant people that have no concept of Torah, no concept of what even makes them Jewish, but they're making a very big stink. Second group of people is the Reform congregations that are actually going and being part of and even spearheading some of the anti-Israel protests and pro-Palestine and Hamas protests, filming it with the talit on and the tzitzit on, which is the only thing they know about Judaism, but they don't actually even know anything of what it actually means, because they don't believe that the Torah is from God, even though they call themselves, Jews. But they're actually spearheading many of these things, many of these protests. Now, don't be surprised. This is no different than what they did during the Holocaust. Anyone that watched my series, Era of Mashiach, based on the book by Rav Elchanan Wasserman, that lived during that time and wrote about it, knows that during the times of the Holocaust, in the years preceding it, the worst people were the Reform. And in fact, during the war, one of the big reasons of why much of the West did not know the significance of the war is because the Reform Jews that run the New York Times hid it. They would put tiny little article in the back of the, small tiny little letters in the back, death toll in Germany, 2 million. Most people literally didn't even realize it existed until after the Holocaust, until they got already to 5 million people. They intentionally hid it, and it was proven over time. That's how much they were self-hating Jews. And these self-hating Jews have been trying to take over Israel already for the last few years. Whether it's trying to take over the Kotel, trying to take over the rabbinical aspects and changing the laws, the courts. They're supporting Hamas. They're supporting anything that's against Israel right now. So the Hollywood people that are Jewish have a community to be part of that's anti-Israel. But if this was the only Hollywood people, then it would be enough. But unfortunately it's not. You also have some famous soccer players and movie stars that are not Jewish. Also, somehow became politicians in the last 2 weeks. Somehow they became very well versed in Middle East affairs, enough to make their opinions public of how they're supporting Hamas and their right to exist instead of the victims here in Israel that got nearly 2,000 people massacred. So you watch their movies, you go to their soccer games, their baseball games, their whatever other games, you go to their comedy events, you watch their shows, you buy their products. You should know you are contributing to a terrorist. Even though many of them don't have a gun. And many of them probably wouldn't even kill a Jew if they saw one. Because most likely, one of the people that they get paid from is a Jew. Since they're so in tune with each other. In fact, somehow they justify hating Israel even because they're friends with Jews. And they just say, no, listen, I'm friends with some Jews. Some of my best friends are Jews. So I'm not anti-Semitic. I'm condemning Israel. Because they think they know. You support their products. You support their movies. You support their ideology. Even outside of their pro-Palestine. You will be judged no different than them. Now the reality is, Rabotai, if this was it, it would be enough. But there's also some people that call themselves religious Jews. They go by the name Netuei Karta. They broke off of a certain part of Hasidut, went completely off the rocker, and have been anti-Israel for years now, getting worse and worse. each year developing close relationships with Israel's enemies, such as Iran, going to visit Iran, getting financial support from Iran, making videos with Iran's leaders, even though Iran publicly states that they want to eradicate all of the Jewish people that live in Israel. And they justify it, and they have protests in different parts of the world, including America, New York. This Neturei Karta creates a lot of confusion for people that are not very familiar with the situation. They see, wait, these Orthodox Jews are hugging the Palestinians and saying that they hate Israel? Like, are you like that too, Rabbi? You hate Israel too? Like, they're confused. They think that just because they have a hat, they have a beard, then that means that everybody has a hat and a beard is the same thing. They don't realize that just like when you go to an office building and people have a suit on, doesn't mean that all the suits are the same. It's not the same profession, not the same skill set, not the same company. But more than confusion, it creates chilul Hashem, creates desecration of God's name. Now, one of the people that's most versed in the topic of dealing with the Muslims, the Muslim culture, customs, Ishmael altogether, is an expert by the name of Dr. Kedal. He knows more about the Quran and their culture and their customs and their history than they do. And literally he's taken them to school 1,000,000 times, destroying all of their arguments and debates in their language, in Arabic. This other person that I mentioned to you, Yosef Haddad, I think his last name is, he's also very, very well versed. He speaks English, speaks Hebrew, speaks multiple languages. I don't know as much about him as I do about Dr. Kedal. But you see, anyone that's actually versed in this topic, it's very easy to destroy the argument against the Palestinians and Hamas and simply this whole thing. But yet, many people don't want to hear the truth because they've already decided which team they want to be on, and therefore they're just looking for someone that agrees with them. Why am I telling you all of this? Why am I telling you all of this? The Torah says to us at the end of Parashat Noach, the 340 years after the flood of Noach, Nimrod spearheaded a war against God by building the Tower of Babel. And he said to everyone, we can build ourselves a name with this tower. Now, of course, he wanted to be a god. But he had many people join him, support him, even though they knew they can't be God. But they still joined him. They knew he wasn't God, but they still joined him. Do you know why? Because he said, let's build ourselves our name. Meaning, you could still benefit from it, even if you're not going to be God like me. You can make money. You can get girls. You can get reputation. You can get honor. You can get a good job. You can do a lot of things. Make yourself a name. And a bunch of people joined him. Even though it wasn't a top position. In fact, it didn't even make sense. You're going to go to war against God by building a tower? And that's somehow going to make you God? They weren't crazy. They were far beyond that. But guess what? There are people today that are not so different. Do you know why? Because our holy sages tell us that at the same time that they're building the Tower of Babel to go to war against God, they're building the Tower of Babel. Tower of Babel was enormous. Bigger than anything else we have in the world today. And it didn't take 1 day or 1 week or 1 month. And they're building it. And just 340 years before it, Hashem destroyed the world. But they're building it anyway. And guess what? For anyone who didn't believe Hashem destroyed the world, they had eyewitness reports. By who? Noah was still alive. He told them, you know you're building a tower to go against the same God that destroyed the world 340 years ago. Shem, his son, was still alive. You know you're building a tower to go against God to destroy the whole world, which included giants much bigger than you. Avraham Avinu was alive at this time. He's about 50 years old. He says to them, what are you doing? You know you're building a tower to go against God, the one and only God. That means, just 340 years ago, God destroyed the whole world. The only people that survived are still alive. The one that speaks to God on a regular basis, Avraham Avinu, is there. No one wants to listen. Why? I want to make myself a name. They've already decided what they want, and they're looking for people that agree with them. Rabotai Yekarim, right now, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is giving us an opportunity. What's the opportunity? You're going to have to make a choice. Which side are you on? Just like Moshe Rabbeinu said, when he came down from Mount Sinai and he saw that some of the wicked people, the Erev Rav, the same Erev Rav reformers of today, convinced people to worship a golden calf. And he said, you have to kill them, even if he's your brother, even if he's your cousin, even if he's small, even if he's big. Mi le Hashem elai, whoever is for God is with me. And the Levi tribe was the only one that jumped at this. That's why they became the Kohanim. The Chafetz Chaim once saw a young student asking questions. Chafetz Chaim asked him, what family are you from? And he says, I'm from such and such family. He says, so you're not a Kohen? The student says, no. He says, I'm a Kohen. Oh, yeah, Kvod Rav, I know you're a Kohen. He says, yes, you might know that I'm a Kohen, but do you know why I'm a Kohen? And the student said, I don't know, because your father's a Kohen? He says, no, that's not the reason. Because God decided that you're a Kohen? No, that's not the reason. It's true, it's not the reason. Do you want me to tell you why I'm a Kohen? Of course, Kvod Rav. He says, because when Moshe Rabbeinu came down from Mount Sinai and he saw the idol worshippers, dancing around a Buddha, dancing around a golden calf, dancing around and mocking Hashem. He said, Mi le Hashem elai, whoever is with me, meaning on the side of Hashem, kill the idol worshippers. Doesn't matter who they are. And guess what? My father, his father, and his father, and his father, and his father, and his father's father, all the way back to then, he was there. And you know what he did at that time? He went and he killed whoever was an idol worshiper. That's why I'm a Kohen. Your father didn't. Your father's friends didn't either. But my father did. The reality is, Rabotai Karim, is at the moment of truth, every single person is going to find out that some of his friends, some of his colleagues, some of his family members are enemies of God. Some of them are clueless, but some are actual enemies of God. Some of the things he watches, some of the things he supports, are enemies of God. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to put you to the test. Why? I think I want to talk to you about. Are you supporting Palestine at this time? In so many words. You okay with the fact that they just murdered a few thousand Jews? Now if you somehow rationalize it, maybe because they weren't religious, oh, maybe because of this, maybe because of that, guess what? You've chosen a side. You chose a side. And it's not the right one. Why? HaKadosh Baruch Hu makes it very clear to us that we're never allowed to join the sign of the wicked people. Now, even though many of the people that were murdered were not exactly Torah observant, they still had the Jewish neshama that you can still do outreach with, get to, and potentially save. No one has the right to take that neshama out of this world. You supporting someone that thinks it's okay to murder Jewish people, that means you're supporting that the next time they're not going to be so particular about just going after the secular people. They may have to go after the religious ones too, just like the Nazis did. You see, the problem is that what people don't realize is that they think, oh yeah, but you know what? Many of them were not religious, so no, there's no such thing. The second you think that it's okay to rationalize killing non-religious Jewish people, you're not even a stone throw away from rationalizing killing anyone that disagrees with you that's Jewish. In fact, there's not much difference between you and the terrorists. Now, this is not to say that it's okay to go against God and to say to desecrate Shabbat or to be immodest or anything like that. One thing has nothing to do with the other. But the way that the Satan convinces people to justify evil is in very clever ways. Sometimes he'll simply convince them through ignorance. Like he did that little black TikTok star. Sometimes he'll convince them through political nonsense. And that's how he does with a lot of people that think of themselves as, politicians, even though they have nothing to do with politics. And some, simply by telling them, listen, they're not religious. So God hates them. So they deserve it. If they didn't deserve it, then God wouldn't do it. And guess what? You just became a terrorist. With the kippah. Rabotai Karim, more than anything else, a Jew must realize that we're not here to give judgment. We're not here to tell you that someone deserves this or someone deserves that. We're telling you what the Torah says. HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells us exactly what He expects from us. And He gives each and every single one of us an opportunity to do tshuva, to fix things, and so long as you're alive, you're going to have that opportunity. The moment that you're no longer alive, you no longer have the opportunity to do tshuva. Now, even though sometimes it's literally mercy from Hashem to take somebody out of the world because of the way that they're behaving is going to lead them to more sins, and it's better for them to reincarnate or some other accounting that Hashem has. But that's for Hashem's to judge. That's not for us. For us, we want people to live so they could do tshuva, so they could fix their life, so they could live a holy life and sanctify Hashem's name. We want them to have a chance to hear the truth. We want them to have a chance to accept the truth. We want them to have a chance to live the truth. And in fact, the more a person thinks about it, the more he'll realize that the rebuke about what happened, spiritually speaking, is more on us religious people than on the secular people. And the reason why, Rabotai Karim, is as Rabbi Yisrael Misalant said to his students when he heard that someone in a different country, in a Jewish community, violated Shabbat for the first time, and Rabbi Yisrael Misalant rebuked his students that were in a completely different country, and he's saying to them that it's their fault, because if they would have studied enough Torah, that Torah would have affected even a Jew in France. In fact, the Gemara in Masechet Shabbat says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu punished the people that were observing Torah before he punished the people that weren't, because they didn't rebuke the non-religious people, the people that were violating Torah. They didn't tell them the truth. They didn't tell them what they needed to hear in order to come back to Hashem. In fact, Rabotai Karim, one of the things that caused Noach to suffer 12 months in the Teva, in the ark, under horrific conditions, was because he did not rebuke his generation enough. He didn't rebuke them enough, and therefore he himself suffered also. Even though he survived, he suffered also. In fact, the Torah Kedosha tells us through the prophet Yechezkel. The prophet Yechezkel was religious Jew, orthodox as it gets. And the prophet Yechezkel is talking to the community, which includes everyone. And he says to them in the name of God, in chapter 20, as for what enters your mind, it shall not be. As for what you say, we will be like the nations, like the families of the land, to worship wood and stone. As I live, the word of the Lord Hashem, I swear that I will rule over you with a strong hand and with an outstretched arm and with an outpoured wrath. I will take you out from the nations and gather you from the lands to which you are scattered, with a strong hand and with an outstretched arm and with outpoured wrath. And I will bring you to the wilderness of the nations. And I will contend with you there, face to face, just as I contended with your forefathers in the wilderness of the land of Egypt. So I will contend with you, the word of the Lord Hashem. I will make you pass under the rod, and bring you into the bond of the covenant. I will separate from among you those who rebel, and those who transgress against me. I will take them out of the land of the sojourning, but they will not come to the soil of Israel. Then you will know that I am Hashem. Here HaKadosh Baruch Hu is talking to both the religious Jews and the non-religious Jews, the ones that are intermarrying and the ones that have a bunch of religious kids. Why? Because he's saying to us that he's going to rebuke all of us, and he's going to separate the ones that are completely wicked, that are rebels, that are transgressing against Hashem and don't want to do tshuva. But by separating them, that means that the religious ones are also there. Who's he separating them from? He's talking to all of us, Rabotai Karim. He's rebuking all of us. All of us having this mentality that everything is okay as long as I live in America. Everything is okay as long as I live in a religious neighborhood. Everything is okay as long as I have money. Everything is okay as long as whatever is going on is far away from me. Everything is okay as long as I have my family and friends and everyone's alive. Everything is okay as long as blah, blah, blah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is telling us nothing is okay. As long as your brother from a different mother that lives in a different town that you don't even know he exists, as long as he's not observing Shabbat, nothing's okay. As long as she is intermarried, nothing's okay. As long as he's in a non-kosher business, it's not okay. As long as you're silent when you see all types of horrible things happening in the community that are against the Torah and against the law, and you stay silent, nothing's okay. Kol Yisrael Aravim Zeh Lazeh, all of Am Yisrael are responsible for each other. All of Am Yisrael is responsible for each other, Rabotai Yekarim. And a Jew that doesn't realize that the problem that we have right now is a problem for every single Jew under the sun. In fact, it's for every single human under the sun. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is about to close the store. He's closing the store. And as the Chachamim teach, before the end, before the war of Gog and Magog, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to reincarnate the souls of all of the worst leaders that ever lived. The Paros, the Nebuchadnezzars. All of the worst ones are going to be reincarnated into that generation's leaders. They're all going to be part of the war of Gog and Magog. HaKadosh Baruch Hu can punish all of them for what they did to Am Yisrael. But that's not right off the bat. There's the birth pangs of Mashiach, the pain and agony that we're dealing with right now. And this is just the beginning. And a Jew that doesn't make the right choices right now to separate themselves from all the nonsense that's against the Torah, from all the lies that's against Hashem, from all the things that are antithetical to the purpose of life, is simply setting themselves up for failure. As the Kadosh Baruch Hu said, Ayol lo tiyeh, it will not be. You think that you will reach success because of money? You will not. Even if you have money now. You think you will reach success because you have real estate? You will not. Even if you have real estate right now. You think you will reach success because you have a family? Because you have a good position in some big company? Because you have whatever it is that you have? There is no purpose of life that depends on materialism. Material is just something for you to use in order to elevate yourself spiritually. But when you make the material your life, your spirituality disintegrates. When you make your purpose of life dependent on materialism, you're building a house of straws right next to a fire. Because no one will see that material give them any value whatsoever the moment they die. No material lasts forever. Even if you have achieved extraordinary wealth of hundreds of millions or even billions, the second you die, it doesn't help you. And in fact, most of that money forgets who you are shortly after you die. Chachamim teaches that if materialism had any part of the purpose of life, we would be better off being created as cows and other animals. Because at the very least, their material is limited. You don't have to make so many choices. If your mentality is material first, God second, you're making a very bad choice. Why? Because that material first, God second, or at some point, is going to lead you to a lot of other bad decisions. It's going to lead you to befriend people that are anti-God. It's going to lead you to having all types of relationships with people that are perfectly fine with killing you, even in the comedy stadium. It's going to, in so many words, put you in so many wrong roads, it'll be a miracle if you find the right way home. When you make your priority material, when you make your priority something that is not God and not the Torah, it's only a matter of time before you end up in such a bad path that by the time you realize, you'll also realize that there's a very, very expensive price to come back to the right path. Because doing tshuva is not simple. It's painful. It's necessary pain. It's worthwhile pain. But you can avoid that pain. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is giving everybody that option right now. Because He's taking away some of the smoke that's been blinding people and showing you who you really have been following. The Hollywood stars, the athletes, the businesses, the ideologies, the communities. He's showing you exactly. Why? Because everyone is making their opinion public. When they say that they're against Israel, they're saying that they're against God. Not because Israel, the country, is perfect, or even close to it. Not because the political situation here is anything remotely close to good. But rather because anyone that says they're against Israel right now is saying that it's okay to murder Jews. It's perfectly fine. And they try to justify it by the fact that they want us to feed and bathe and provide electricity for our enemies, when they themselves don't do it for their allies. Just ask the people that live in Hawaii, or New Orleans, or many of the other places that suffered while their own government sat quiet. So, the reality is, Rabotai, is that we have to make that choice. We have a moment of truth right now, as a Jewish people. Me, le'Hashem, Elai. Whoever's for God is with me. What does it mean to be for God? That means that your lifestyle has to make Hashem your number one priority. How do you show Hashem that it's your number one priority? First and foremost, look what He commanded you and start doing it. If you're a secular Jew or non-observant Jew or semi-religious Jew, that needs to change as soon as possible. Why? Because you have to pick a side. You have to pick a side. And before Hashem lets the second shoe drop, He's giving you a chance to make a decision. Those people you went to clubs with on Shabbat, they're against God. They're pro-Hamas. They're okay with the murder and rape of Jewish people. So, is it really worth it to go against God for them? Those people that you cheated customers with, they're also against God. And when push comes to shove, they'll be against you too. Is it really worth it for you to continue doing all those horrible things with them? You have to make a choice. It's the first choice for people that are not observant. If you're Jewish, you have to start keeping Shabbat. You have to start keeping kosher. You have to start learning Torah. Dedicate a certain amount of time every single day to learning Torah. Baruch Hashem, today, Hashem made it very easy to learn Torah. The books that you can get from ArtScroll or Feldheim or any of the kosher Jewish publishers, they're relatively costly. They're not costly, and you can get many things online. And better yet, you can save yourself a lot of time from reading many of the books by simply watching one of our lectures or some of the other great rabbis' lectures, like Rav Ephraim, our own dear Rav Ephraim, or Rav Yosef Mizrahi, if you need English. And there are certainly others that teach good Torah that you can learn from. And Baruch Hashem, by now we've already made nearly 12,000 videos between the Hebrew and the English channels. It's a lot of material. Just myself, I have probably close to 5,000, maybe 6,000 videos over the years between the different channels, the short clips, the long clips, the movies. Even if you learn 10% of it, over the next year, you're going to become a very, very happy Jewish person. Because you'll know a lot of answers to a lot of questions that you never even knew you had. So if you're not religious, you got to pick the side. And you'll see that the reward for that side already starts in this world. And one of the biggest rewards that you could ever get is having answers to questions that you never even knew you had, and certainly questions that you had. And our lectures, Baruch Hashem, have addressed countless questions that I myself asked over the years. Now what about if you already are religious? What do you have to do? You already picked a side. You picked the side of God, right? You're religious, but yet the rebuke from the prophet Yechezkel was also to a Jew. The rebuke from all of the prophets is also to a Jew. You know why? I'll tell you why. With a story. Rabbi Yosef, alav shalom, was not only an extraordinary chacham, was not only an extraordinary tzaddik, but he was a person that HaKadosh Baruch Hu chose to be the Gedol Hador. And everyone recognized it. But his Gedol Hador status was not because he was so smart. It was not because he had an astounding memory. It was not because of the way he prayed. It was not because of the reasons most people think. Because most people think, if someone's smart, if they wrote a lot of books, they had good luck, good memory, good genes. That's not what makes a Gedol Hador. I'll tell you what makes a Gedol Hador. Because it's the same thing that will make your choice apparent to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There was once a lecture event for Dayanim. These are the highest caliber of scholars in the Jewish world. They're all judges. Average person needs to study Torah intensely for over 20 years. After finishing yeshiva and so on, for over 20 years to become a dayan. Some do it in less time, but needless to say, it's many years. Regardless of how smart you are. This is becoming the expert of experts. So with Rav Ovadia being the highest among everyone, they had an event where was a crowd full of dayanim, hundreds of Jewish judges. And of course, everyone expected the Rav to really show the breadth of Torah that was literally endless that he had. And gave a very, very sophisticated lecture. But to their surprise, when the Rav sat down, he started telling them stories. Like Musar stories. Tzaddikim stories. Simple things that seemed more of like a lecture for regular people. In fact, it was like a KIRUV lecture, where you're just trying to get people to understand that the Torah is valuable and beautiful and has a long history of amazing things and miracles. It didn't seem like this was the right lecture for this particular crowd. It's like going to a lecture, a bunch of physicists and astronauts about basic algebra. Didn't seem like it fits. But that's what Rav Ovadia did. And at the end of the lecture, although the stories were entertaining and beautiful, everyone was surprised. And one of the people there came up to the Rav before he left, And he said, for the Rav, we were expecting the Rav to really give us a shiur about something that the Rav deals with. Or Yabia Omer, the highest depth of knowledge that we've seen in recent generations is in the Sfarim of the Rav of Yabia Omer. You simply do not understand genius until you see a single page of Yabia Omer. Most people think, just because they know a few stories, perhaps even they have a chidush or two. That's a decent chidush, they already think, I'm going to be Rav Ovadia soon. Survive a single page of Yabia Omer by just understanding what it says. Forget about having anything new insights. Just understanding what it says, one page of Yabia Omer, then you'll understand why you're never going to become Rav Ovadia. So these judges, these dayanim, expected the Yabia Omer to arrive, but they had, the Rav Ovadia that gives lectures at the Lavyan and at the Mosayov event, Motzei Shabbat, to Balabatim, regular people. And it's a little surprising. Can the Rav tell us why? Rav Ovadia looked at him and he said, I saw that the place was full of dayanim, Baruch Hashem. But I also saw that you brought a cameraman. And the cameraman doesn't look like he's connected to the Torah. The way he looks doesn't look religious. So I had to give the lecture to reach him. I had to determine these dayanim, they're already close to Hashem. They already know what Hashem is. They already know what Torah is. So sure, they can learn more, and I can give them more insights about different things. But what about this poor Jew? This cameraman doesn't even know what I'm going to say. He's not going to understand the lecture for Dayanim, because he's not even connected to Hashem yet. He has a long ponytail. He doesn't even wear a kippah. He's just there to work. He has no concept of what he's in. He thinks the Torah is too far from him. I wanted to show him that it's not. So the whole lecture is not for 500 dayanim that are there. It's for the one single Jewish cameraman that I needed to bring back to Hashem. One Jew, it's far from Hashem, outweighed 500 dayanim. Why? He was in critical condition because he was far from Hashem. Now, if you are religious and you want to make your choice of the side that you chose before it's too late obvious, then you must do what the Chovot HaLevavot said is even greater than Torah and mitzvot of someone that has, like Moshe Rabbeinu. And you have to support KIRUV, Jewish outreach that actually works. Not just outreach on the door, but in reality there's no one inside. Now just outreach on the internet, but in reality even the leaders themselves need outreach. But outreach that works. KIRUV that works. KIRUV that has actual results. You have to make that your number one investment of time, resources, or whatever gift you have. Because right now, whether the war is going to get much worse now, or it's a little while from now, either way, I think it's pretty clear. This is the last stop. Everyone is getting that last chance. Now you can show up on that day with your religious self and your religious community and tell Hashem, look, I'm religious. And only to hear the Mashiach tell you, where's your brother? Where is your brother? Just like the father that told his son, I'm going to have a big event. I want to have a big event. I want to make sure that you and your brother come. Whatever you need to spend for the sake of my honor, spend. I'll pay for it. So the guy went, bought himself and his family a bunch of new clothes, fancy jewelry for his wife and daughters, all types of beautiful things, private jet, private limo, all types of wonderful things. Then he realized, wait, yeah, my brother, I got to bring him too. Okay, whatever, just get him something off the shelf and just tell him to come. And they get to the event, see, beautiful event, all types of wonderful things. At the end of the event, he comes to the father, he goes, listen, it's a beautiful event, wonderful to be here. But just wanted to let you know, you told me you're going to give me back the money that I spent for your honor. Here's the receipt. And the father looks at the receipt. He says, I'm not paying any of this. What do you mean? You said you're going to pay for what I do for your honor. And the father says, exactly. I said if you buy something for my honor. You didn't buy it for my honor. You bought it for yourself. The jet, for yourself. The suits, for yourself. Shoes, for yourself. Jewelry for your wife, for yourself. You know how I know it's all for yourself? Because I told you, I want you and your brother to come. You and your brother to come. Your wife and kids. Everybody else has fancy things. But your brother, he's still wearing ripped shoes from 5 years ago. Your brother's suit has holes in it. He looks like a mess. Why didn't you take care of your brother? Why didn't you take care of your brother? You know why? Because you don't care about your brother. You care about yourself. And if you really came here for my honor, then you wouldn't care about yourself. You care about your brother. Because you know that's what I care about. If you're religious, and you know it's the right, that it's the last stop, this is our last chance, that means it's our last chance to care about our brothers. Your fellow Jews that don't know what Shabbat is, it's time they know. Stop sugarcoating it for them or deciding for them that they can't handle it. If God put it in the Torah, that means He knows that all of us can handle it. Tell everybody what it says in the Torah. And guess what? You don't even have to do that. Simply put, send them our lectures. Let our lectures, for the last 10 years, do the job. I promise you, it works. Countless people have done tshuva from them. Right now, Rabotai Karim, the number one responsibility of every single Jew that's already on the right path is to make KIRUV their number one priority in life. I'm not telling you to stop working. I'm not telling you to stop eating. I'm not telling you to start, flying in the air. Simply put, I'm telling you to make KIRUV your number one priority. Which means you work, but try to figure out a way of how to connect your work to doing KIRUV. Do you have any coworkers that are Jewish? Do you have any money that you make enough from the job to support KIRUV? Do you have anything that you could connect to KIRUV right now? This is the thing to do. Because the last stop. And if you busy yourself with KIRUV, you're also going to meet a bunch of people that they're looking for a side. They're looking for a side because they don't like the side that's the most popular right now, that's promoting Hamas, terrorism, Hezbollah, anti-God. They don't like it. But quite frankly, they don't know where else it's going because the only time they see religious Jews is when they're across the street looking at them funny. Perhaps it's time they take care of your brother. And if it's a lady, take care of your sister. Woman helps a woman. Man helps a man. Don't start doing KIRUV on women if you're a guy. It's not your job. It's not your role. Avraham helped and created the men and Sarah the women. What does it mean, created them? The Torah says, anyone that brings another person closer to Hashem and helps them do tshuva, they become a partner with Hashem. as if they created them together. May it be His will that each and every single one of us jumps on this train, on this last stop, either to do complete teshuva or to help others. And quite frankly, the best thing is do both. Bracha v'atzlacha to everybody, and Bezrat Hashem, we will see each other again and learn together tomorrow. Kol Tuv.